Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to discuss Nigel Farage's deportation plan as Reform set out their plans on what they're going to do. Of course, we've already seen that it was a bit of a U-turn from Nigel Farage. A few months back, he said it was a political impossibility. And whilst many people may, of course, feel that this could be a good thing going forward, and there is a lot of positives. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things that are currently not in place now in the United Kingdom that would be good for Britain going forward, like i.e. sort of detention centres, people not being housed in sort of hotels, working with the home countries, whether it be Afghanistan, to get individuals deported, leaving the European Convention of Human Rights and other treaties like the Human Rights Act, Refugee Convention, UN Convention Against Torture, Council of Europe's Anti-Trafficking Convention. Look, these are all good things and a step in the right way. However, there was a few points that I want to discuss that do raise serious alarm bells and actually could cause and pose a huge detriment and actually see this plan not really work. Now, as I said, if you announce a deportation plan that will not take effect for another 4 years while stating that women and children will be excluded, the consequences are both obvious and disastrous. You can see that as clear as day. Firstly, illegal immigrants will quickly adapt to such loopholes. Many will deliberately start families, knowing that courts, even in a post-ECHR Britain, will be extremely reluctant to break up households. Judges will almost always side with preservation of family unity, which means migrants who have children will be effectively shielded from deportation. In practice, this policy would incentivize illegal migrants to settle, have children, and then rely on those children as a protective barrier against being removed from the country. The only fair and workable solution is to deport all illegal migrants, including women and children. It shouldn't just be the men. That's what Reform's plan is. Just men only, and women and children will not be deported, which won't work. As I said, they're not being sent to punishment camps. They're being returned to their own countries. Exemptions based on family status create a pull factor and render an entire policy ineffective. Second, by announcing that women and children will not be deported, the government effectively issues an open invitation for them to come. Traffickers, smugglers, and NGOs will seize on this loophole to encourage women and children to attempt the crossing from France, knowing full well that once they arrive in Britain, they cannot legally be deported. This doesn't reduce illegal migration, it increases it. In creating more dangerous journeys, more vulnerable people being exploited, and ultimately more lives being put at risk. To cut women and children out of the deportation plans is to undermine the credibility of the entire deportation strategy. A loophole like this isn't just a minor weakness, it makes a policy unenforceable. Reform really needs to look at that, because already someone who's not involved in politics, you can see the glaring loopholes and you can already see what individuals and traffickers will then do. Women and children are being incentivized to come because they know they will never be deported. And as I said, if that wasn't damaging enough, right? The bit on Northern Ireland, the suggestion that Northern Ireland must remain under the jurisdiction of the European Courts of Human Rights because of the Belfast Agreement completely collapses the policy altogether. Illegal migrants will simply head to Northern Ireland to avoid deportation. Once again, Northern Ireland is thrown under the bus, sacrificed as a loophole, left to bear the brunt of a flawed UK-wide policy. You know, I understand the Belfast Agreement, and they're saying in their plan that Northern Ireland will not be removed from the ECHR. So you're literally telling them, the illegal migrants, to go to Northern Ireland and they can't be deported. There's just so many flaws in this plan already, and that's just two really, really big points. And actually, that will turn Northern Ireland into an absolute shit pit. And they are not helping the people of Northern Ireland whatsoever when it comes to their deportation plan. The Reform Party's current deportation policy is not only weak, but amounts to outright stupidity. If you're serious about solving illegal migration, there can be no carve-outs, no delays, and no safe havens are part of the plan. Anything less than total enforcement is not a policy, it's an incentive for a more illegal migration. But thank you guys for hearing me out. I know that this is a bit of a subjective conversation. A lot of people love reform, a lot of people love Nigel Farage, and people will be saying, Dan, why can't you just get behind a bit of positivity? But it's not my job to just sit there and nod my head and go, yeah, that works, without calling out the glaring loopholes that are in place. If you think individuals won't use these loopholes, then you're damn right stupid, unfortunately. But it's important to see it. And I'm going to say it. Reform do have some good policies. Yes, a lot of the things that they were talking about was a step in the right direction, but not deporting women and children and not having Northern Ireland leave the ECHR is a huge loophole that people will exploit and makes this whole plan completely null and void. Do let me know your thoughts on this down there in the comment section below.
In other news, Britons could soon lose access to one of the most generous inheritance tax breaks as Rachel Reeves looks for new ways to raise revenue. Industry insiders say the Chancellor is eyeing up a little-known exemption that allows people to pass on unlimited wealth without paying tax. The rule, known as the Gifts Out of Normal Expenditure exemption, currently lets individuals with surplus income make regular payments to family or friends without triggering inheritance tax. Unlike most gifting rules, there is no limit on how much can be handed over. Treasury officials are exploring ways to generate additional inheritance tax receipts by restricting gifting allowances, putting this particular rule under scrutiny. The timing coincides with increased family wealth transfers as households prepare for upcoming changes that will bring unspent pensions within inheritance tax scope from April 2027. The rule has become especially popular with wealthier families who want to reduce the amount their estates are taxed. To qualify, the gifts must come from income rather than savings, and they need to be made regularly as part of someone's normal spending. People using the rule must be able to show they have enough income left to maintain their usual standard of living without dipping into capital. Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs will examine whether the gifts represent genuine surplus income rather than forced lifestyle reductions. A key advantage of the rule is that it operates immediately, without requiring the typical 7-year survival period that applies to other inheritance tax gifts. Even if someone dies shortly after starting such gifts, these transfers remain outside inheritance tax calculations if evidence shows they were intended to be ongoing. Regular patterns of gifting carry more weight with HMRC than one-off large transfers. Sean McCann, Chartered Financial Planner at NFU Mutual, said, "Currently, if you make regular gifts, there's no restriction on how much you can give away immediately free from IHT, provided it is out of your income and doesn't impact your normal standard of living." He added that this provision is likely to be in the Chancellor's sights in the forthcoming budget. What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you've not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.